After 18 months, I'm finally off to see No Time to Die in the theater. We're seeing it on an IMAX screen. It's one of the best screens in town, but it's also about 40 miles away from my house, so we got a bit of a drive ahead of us. I've been a big fan of Craig as Bond. His movies are a little bit uneven. A couple of them were rushed into production a little bit, and the script wasn't quite fine-tuned enough. But in his non-rushed films, they provide a more human Bond, awesome action that's not cartoonish, and just more well-rounded films. So all the buzz I've heard about this one makes it sound like it's going to be an emotionally satisfying conclusion to Craig's run as Bond. And I've managed to avoid any sort of spoilers also, so I'm pretty excited about that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and watch it, then we're gonna talk about it. No Time to Die is Daniel Craig's fifth and final film as James Bond. Be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about the film? And let's get started with the good. And for me, this movie absolutely lived up to my excitement for a number of different reasons. First off, it's a world of consequences. And what I mean by that is that the events of the previous films shape the world of this film. What happened to Bond in the previous films shapes who he is in this film, and so it feels like actions actually have weight. They matter, and they will change the trajectory of the story and the character arcs as they go forward. And a big piece of that is that Daniel Craig's James Bond is a much more human version of Bond. He grows, he changes. We get to know enough about him to know things that he wants, things that he doesn't want. And as I said, he is shaped by everything that we've seen and learned about him from the past. So he's a much more nuanced character. He's not just the stereotype of the Playboy spy. He's a human that happens to be a Playboy spy, and there's reasons that he's chosen that path, and there's reasons he might not want to continue down it. But there's an interesting character there, not just the fantasy of the guy that can always get the job done and hook up with all the ladies. And a piece of that is that Bond forms connections with other people, friendships, actual loving relationships, and then he has co-workers that he legitimately respects their opinion, and there's people that respect his opinion. And because there's a history there that's built off everything that's come before, when things happen to characters, when characters betray trust, when they don't trust people, you feel something, you care about what happens to the characters throughout the story, because they're presented as humans, not just spy caricatures and cartoon characters. And to be clear, this is a Bond film jam-packed with big emotions. It's probably the most emotional Bond film because we have spent, in some cases, 15 years with some of these characters, showing them doing life together, even in this wild spy world, and it tries to find satisfying conclusions to each of these arcs and these relationships. And there's a bunch of life and death that happens in this film. And the reason all of this works is because across the board, the cast is really good. Of course, you have Craig in the lead, who's always played this more physical Bond that's a bit of a brawler, but he's also given a lot more moments to be vulnerable, sensitive. In particular, in this film, they put that very much on display of how all of these adventures have taken a toll on him, but how he's still dedicated to the mission and heroic. Likewise, it's nice to see all of our returning Bond allies, see where they're at, how they've responded to kind of what happened with him at the end of the previous film, and how they respond to his return in this film. The big standout in the movie, though, is Ana de Armas. She's only in this one sequence, but she absolutely steals the scenes with just the nature of her character's bubbly personality, and then how it pays off when the action kicks in. It's a great little character and a great little sequence. On that note, the movie can also be really funny. Ana de Armas' character, actually, in particular, is one of the funniest characters in the movie, where she plays a character that's very familiar for these types of movies in a sequence that's very familiar to a Bond film, but she responds to all the familiar tropes so differently than everyone else does in these movies that it just breaks the tension in just the right way. It's really fun to watch, and even just seeing how Bond reacts to her character and what she does all throughout her sequence is a blast. But the whole movie finds ways to have humor that fits the characters, fits the scenarios, but without inappropriately breaking tension. It doesn't throw jokes in at the wrong times, it throws them in at the right moments before the tension kicks in. And of course, this is a Bond movie, so you gotta talk about the action. And this movie is just jam-packed with great action shots. Like, the specific environments and scenarios of the action sequences might in and of themselves not be the most exotic or exciting. He's not driving a tank through Moscow or anything like that, but they're doing chase sequences and shooting them in a way that is just more vibrant, dynamic, and exciting than has ever been done before in these movies. And what I mean by that is that he's hopping motorcycles and flipping cars and dodging cars flying at him, and they're done with shots where you can see exactly what's taking place, and they're just handled really nicely in a way that delivers what you want from an action sequence. Likewise, as a Bond movie, there's always the question of the gadgets and tech, and the Craig movies have like slowly inched their way into the more extravagant text type stuff. And so by the time you get to this movie, they start to have some of the more outrageous and over-the-top Bond tech and gizmos in the film, but it's handled in a way where you just kind of buy into it. You're watching it and the tone feels just about right, the tech feels right, and it's just grounded enough with things around it that it fits the tone and the world that we're in without going full-blown cartoonish, while at the same time having over-the-top tech. I just think they balanced it really nicely. And finally, for me, this was a satisfying conclusion to Daniel Craig's run as James Bond. If you look back at the other Bonds that had significant runs, they ended on a whimper. Diamonds Are Forever, A View to a Kill, Die Another Day, widely regarded as some of the worst films from those particular Bonds, and I just don't think that was the case here. They found a story that elevated the emotions, that had fantastic action, it had humor in it. They really paid attention to the Bond that they had established throughout the previous 4 films and the world they built around him, and tried to find the logical conclusion for that character in this world. And for me, I found it to be a satisfying conclusion. Also, my wife, who is not a fan of the Bond films, she only likes Casino Royale and this one, and she's not sure which one she likes more, but she really likes those 2 films. Take that however you would like, but there's more to talk about with this movie, so let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And the big thing here is that there's like 5 or 6 different things that people are going to be talking about on the internet, debating this film for a very long time. They go for a big, bold story with a whole bunch of different layers. And anytime you go big and bold, you get big responses and big emotions from the viewers, both good and bad. If you take a risk and it pays off for some people, they love you for it. If you take a risk, it's not going to pay off for everybody and they will hate you for it. When you take a character that's been in the movies for 60 years now and do bold new things with his character arc, that's not going to sit well with a lot of the fans who spent their entire life watching one type of Bond film and have the expectations that that's what this movie will be, and when it delivers something very different, it's not going to sit right with them. Robert Meyer Burnett articulated this perspective very well when he said, Craig's tenure as Bond has shifted the entire series into almost another genre altogether. Call it the reluctant hero. That's the real problem. Fundamentally, that's not at all who Bond is. And I think that's an entirely fair perspective that a lot of audience members will share. That wasn't my experience. I really liked the film and the new things that they did, but I get why some people will not take this film very well. In fact, during my screening, there was a guy that was heckling basically the entire movie, and then about 20 minutes from the end stood up, pointed at the screen as he was walking out and said, "You're not Bond, you suck!" and then walked out and didn't even see how the movie ended. All that to say, if you want your Bond movies to follow the classic formula of the past, that's not really what this is, in particular in Bond's characterization. and it might not be the right movie for you. One final thing in the mixed section, a bunch of people are asking me, what Bond movies do you need to watch before you watch this one? You need to watch the previous Daniel Craig films, and it's a pocket continuity where each movie builds on the previous film. To understand No Time to Die, you need to have seen Spectre. To understand Spectre, you need to have seen the 3 movies that came before that. But really, just watch all 4 previous Daniel Craig Bond films before you watch this movie. From there, let's move on to the bad. And as I said before, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, so while I do have a few things that stuck out to me, they're minor in the scheme of my experience with the film. First one is that I feel like they keep making Bond's universe smaller. This is something that really started in Spectre, where they started interconnecting all the characters and everyone had a personal connection to everyone else. They continue down that path in this film, where once again, villains have ties to heroes and allies. So it just makes the universe a little bit too small for my taste. Second one on here, there's a few things that they do with the plot in order to set up the betrayals and the comebacks and all the plot points they're trying to do. Feel like they cheated a couple plot points where I, as the audience member, was like, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going. Wait, couldn't it just be this? And then it turns out that that thing that I was speculating was correct. And when I'm thinking that, but Bond's not, I shouldn't be smarter than James Bond in a spy movie. And so I think there's a few things like that that bugged me a bit. And finally, I didn't feel like the main villain himself was all that compelling. Like, he's posing a global threat. He feels personally dangerous in interactions with Bond and his allies. Rami Malek plays him in an appropriately creepy way, but leaving the film, he wasn't the thing that made an impact. He didn't seem all that memorable, the way that Le Chiffre was just playing cards with Bond throughout Casino Royale, and he was just so memorable because he had such a presence in the film. And I just didn't feel that way about this particular character. I don't think he's going to go down as one of the great Bond villains or anything like that. He was just appropriately creepy and dangerous. And finally, it's a very long movie, and because it is so emotional and it takes you on this big, gigantic journey, I don't think it's going to be one of the more rewatchable Bond films. Bond films typically are very digestible. They're very easy to put on and just kind of watch real quick in the background. That's not what this is. This is a journey that you have to like sit down, process, and soak in. And so, like I said, these are minor things that I noticed. They didn't really detract all that much from my viewing experience, but there were a few things about the film that weren't absolutely perfect, as is the case with all movies. Real quick, before I give you my final score on this one, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think about No Time to Die? I'm a little bit scared to see the comment section on this one because I know this one is going to be polarizing with audiences. Also, come back this weekend. I'm ranking all 25 Eon Bond films. This is a project I started working on literally in December of 2019 when I started watching through all the Connery Bond films. And then the movie's been delayed so many times that it's taken me forever to finally do this ranking. So I am so excited to finally talk about all 25 Eon Bond films. No Time to Die is not only an emotionally satisfying conclusion to Daniel Craig's run as James Bond, but it's also one of the best films in the franchise. It has heart, it has humor, it has awesome action, and it also has a great character arc for Bond himself. I thought it was great. Overall, I'm giving this one an A on the entertainment scale. It's a 9 out of 10. And if you're interested in a Bond that actually grows and changes, this is a must-see. If you're a Bond purist that wants a movie that fits the formula of decades past, this probably isn't going to be the Bond movie for you. Remember to come back this weekend to check out my ranking of all 25 Eon Bond films, and you can check out my other Bond coverage right over there in that playlist. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.